All right. So yeah, I guess I was gonna open this up with like kind of like tell me a little bit about yourself and kind of like your story because I think you have a really cool story that like a lot of people might not know about.
I mean, I'm older than most of the underground rappers that are doing stuff today, at least the ones that haven't been around for 27 years. 26 years old, grew up in northwest Montana, which is the absolute middle of nowhere. There is almost nowhere less isolated, certainly not in the continental United States. I live in a major city, and that town has about 120,000 people, I think. Um, so we're talking. I'm 10 hours from Seattle. That is my closest actual city. Uh, and so yeah, I growing up, I wound up going to a youth group and met a youth leader there who really liked rap music, and it was kind of through him that I got. I mean, everyone when I was growing up, everyone listened to Eminem and 50 Cent, and like that was the music to listen to. Um, and so like I knew about rap, I liked rap, but he was the one who really got me interested in kind of the art and the style behind it. Um, and so a white kid with no background at all in anything even remotely urban started trying to rap, and I was god awful. There
Hmm.
was it was bad, and
Really?
for whatever reason I've stuck with it, and here I am.
Did you did you kind of have I can actually really relate to the whole like being in the middle of nowhere, like having nothing like like you don't have really like a ton of culture where you are, I guess. What kind of like
Sure.
struggles did you have with that? Cuz I feel like the hardest part at least like that I've felt is just like getting started and like kind of like being that person who is trying to like do something for themselves, like make a name for themselves, and you're kind of like stuck in the mud almost, like you're in like a place where like maybe not a lot of people understand really what you're trying to do, or like they think it's dumb, like you should just get a job and do
Totally.
whatever. Like what kind of did you have any like struggles or like hardship with that, or like like any adversity?
I mean, I've always had, but like everyone has generally been really supportive of me, so I haven't had a ton of problems with like people telling me to quit or whatever. But I don't. I think really I didn't. So I left at 18. I went to college in Hillsdale, Michigan, which was also in the middle of nowhere, but closer to Chicago and Detroit, which was nice. And then I moved to Florida for a while, and then I moved back to Montana. Um, and I guess I don't know what I expected or what I thought, but I don't think that I treated music as enough of a job to encounter the struggles of like trying to make it go somewhere and not being able to really get it to go somewhere. Um, I think that more so over the last year and a half or 2 years or so, as I've really started to push and to understand what it means and looks like to try to make a career out of music. Um, I've run into those issues and those problems, and that those struggles, like you said, being able to get off the ground. Like there's nowhere to do shows. One of the best ways to convince people that they like your music is to perform it for them in person. Because even the shows that I do around here, where like 5 people show up, um, I get like people love it. People are
Yeah.
absolutely in love with my shows far more than anyone who listens on the internet,
Yeah.
because like I'm a real person there in front of them, and there's this connection that you can make, and I can make that connection with 5 people at a time in a town of 20,000. It's just not there are not enough people to
Hmm.
get the momentum needed to get that going. And so I definitely appreciate that struggle. I know what that's like, and I don't think that I was serious enough early on to really appreciate that,
Yeah.
if that makes any sense.
Do you have you tried getting like shows like booked in like Seattle and stuff, or not really, or
A little bit. It is really hard
yeah.
to get people to pay attention. What they're looking for people who can draw a crowd, which I can't do from 10 hours away. Um, like I don't have enough of a following online to be able to create a presence that will
Hmm.
draw somebody in. And they're looking for people with performance experience. And again, performing in front of 5 people does isn't quite what they're looking for. In spite of the fact that I have performed in front of 50 to 100 people, and it is 47 times easier than performing in front of 5 people.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
um,
I'm sure you get a little social anxiety with like a smaller group than
oh gosh, it's rough. But
yeah.
I
Uh
don't know. I also learned it's. Go ahead.
no, you're good. You can finish.
I just I think I really started performing again about 2 years ago. I picked it up again. I'd performed some when I was younger, but um, thing that I did really well. I knew that my stage presence wasn't going to be great. Like the first time that I stepped on stage again, like it was going to be a little bit rough, but I wanted to make sure that my vocal performance was like spot on, and I've at least nailed that, and I think that that works.
Yeah.
So overcome some of the social anxiety that way.
Definitely. I guess like here we would have in Iowa at least we have it a little easier because you don't have like that town of like 120,000 people. Have you performed there at all or anything or?
I haven't. I've tried to get a show over there, and I can't get anybody to take me up because that there still aren't like clubs where rappers perform consistently.
Yeah.
Like occasionally somebody relatively big name will come through and they'll host a show, but it's
you don't have you just don't have much of an underground scene like at all.
It's non-existent.
Yeah. That's rough. Even like here, like we have I'm from Cedar Falls, which is kind of in the middle of Iowa. We have like Des Moines, Iowa City, like there's a couple of places I feel like where like people can build a little following for themselves locally and stuff, but like that's rough. I feel like you're in like a really like interesting predicament kind of, you know, like you're in like Montana, like do you guys even like do most people even like listen to rap out there, I guess, you know, and stuff, or is that
I mean, there are definitely people that listen to rap. One of the most fun and most frustrating things about being a rapper is that everyone else is a rapper.
Oh yeah.
And that holds true even out in the middle of nowhere, Montana. But I think that it is. There just aren't enough people. Like there are roughly 1 million people in my entire state.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I had the backing of my entire state, right? Everyone here who listened to rap music, like how many is that? 300,000?
Yeah.
Like every major artist has more out of their own city. Like much less their state or like it's very difficult to get started with that size of population.
I've seen you've been pushing your music though like really heavily on like, you know, like Facebook and like your socials and stuff, which is probably the way, you know, to do it. I really liked your new song Right Now. Was it? Yeah, I thought it was really good. I was just like what was your like inspiration behind, you know, that song?
Life was going pretty well for me.
Yeah.
I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'm going to be going to law school this coming fall. I applied to 10 schools and I got 3 full ride scholarship offers, which is always a nice ego boost. And so, I mean, the first line of the song is everything I do right now is perfect. Like, just felt like everything I was doing was working.
Yeah. That's really cool. I think it's interesting that like you have a really successful like academic and, you know, like outside of like rapping, like you know, like career. And do you have any like struggles kind of like balancing the two, I guess, you know, like how hard is that for you to do? Like do you ever feel like you want to go all in on one, or like I feel like it's just like a constant balancing act for you?
It definitely is. I mean, I'm also married, which is a little bit unusual. And so what I do with my life affects more than just me and involves more than just me as the decision maker. And like my wife is wonderful. I love her to death. She doesn't hold me back, but like I would probably do things differently if it was only going to be my own ass if I failed. I have more to think about, more responsibility than that, but it's one of the things that we talked about when I applied to law school. I applied to a bunch of law schools all over the country. Were we going to move to go to the best law school, or were we going to move to go to the best place for my musical career? And did we want to push music or going to law school? And I mean, it somewhat limited in terms of I don't want to go into debt for obvious reasons. And so those 3 cities that offered me full ride scholarships were kind of my 3 choices, and there's some financial limitations there, but I wanted to That's always been a question. Like, am I going to? I am. I think Lil Dicky in his song "Professional Rapper" um, talks about the fact that he gave up the life that he had of being, a middle class white guy working at an office job, to be a rapper, and that he wasn't like all these kids who didn't have anything to lose. He had stuff to give up, and there is definitely tension, knowing that. I mean, I could quit my job and try to make a living off of music, and I could try to make that happen, and balancing when that's worth it, or if that's worth it, or what that looks like is not always easy.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
Actually, one of the reasons that I am going to law school though is because one, it'll get me out of Montana. Which again, I moved back to Montana like at the exact same time I decided to start taking myself seriously as a musician. Terrible idea. Don't move to Montana to start your career. But I want to go back to a bigger city. I want to find a place where I can build a little bit more of a following, do a little bit more, but also, um, I actually hope to have more time than I do currently, working 40 hours a week, going to law school to work on music.
Yeah.
So
So you think that'll kind of give you some more time to like be inspired, I guess, and like kind of
yeah,
make some more?
I mean, I don't know. You work as a videographer, and which is absolutely awesome. But like when you sit, I wake up. The first thing I do is get ready for work, and then I go to work, and then I come home, and I get home by 5:30 or 6 o'clock at night, and I'm tired. Like the best and most productive parts of my brain are gone.
Yeah,
Like,
I
and that's
understand
the
that.
time. And so, even if it's just time between classes, like I'm gonna have more room to think and to be creative around
Hmm.
the edges, I think.
Definitely, like I feel like in terms of mental, like you need to be there mentally, like mentally present and like energized to like kind of have that like music, like inspiration, I guess. But
Totally.
that was kind of brings me to another point. Like you said that's right now is like comes from like a really happy place. One of the real like the big things that like kind of like turned me on like to you like and kind of made me like really like your stuff was you have this just real like happy like vibe and like overall like beat and stuff. I don't remember the name of the song. The very first one that I listened to from you, I was like, oh shit, like hold on, I have to find it. It is here we go. It was called For a Time. That's what it was. And that
Wait, what was
song
it called?
For a Time.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. That song was hella good and I was like, yeah, like because I remember I posted on Facebook that Black with No Cream group, and I was
Yeah.
like, yo, I'm looking for some music to put in our vlogs, and that's where like I found you. And then I was in Colorado at the time for
Yeah.
work, and I just spent the rest of the night like listening to your stuff, and I was like, he's so good. Like I've been a fan since. And then you have other songs. You have other songs like Contemplations on Silence and stuff that also are like really serious. Like you have a good mix of like lyrical, like you're super lyrical, and then you also have this really upbeat, happy like vibe for the most part that I really like. Like kind of what is like why would you say that your music is mostly like that? I guess.
I mean, I have. It's a pretty conscious decision. A couple of things. Firstly, I have an amazing life. My music career is and everything I want it to be. I'm not always perfectly happy, but my life is absolutely fantastic. I am blessed to be where I am. I'm blessed to have the people around me who I have around me. Like this, there is. I have absolutely no right to complain about anything that's going on in my life. And I, I do have this. I'm a pretty deep thinker. I always have been. And so you see that in songs like Contemplations on Silence. Like I think about things, and I sometimes I want to put those into song form. But more than anything else, I feel like the world today is really overwhelmingly negative about a lot of different things. There is so much hate in the world, not for just it's terrible. Like you can't. It almost doesn't matter what you're talking about. You can find two people screaming at each other on the internet about it. And
Yeah.
that is what our life has devolved into. And I don't want to be a part of that. I want to try to be a place that you can go where that goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's part of my brand, my persona, but also part of my music. Like, I want to make music that makes people not superficially happy, but legitimately happy about the things that they have and about them, the opportunities that they have, I guess all of that.
Yeah. Do you
Like, yeah, go ahead.
do you like ever have, like, say if you're not happy, do you have trouble writing music then, or like do you think you'd ever make songs about, like coming from like a depressed state or anything, like, like maybe not like happy all the time? Because I feel like that's a like I feel like that's a huge part of music too, like is coming from like a not necessarily a great emotional state.
Totally. If a friend of mine in college told me that, I'm trying to remember, I think it was Adele. He said that I needed to make less depressing music. And I think, but he basically said something along the lines, I'm butchering this for him, so sorry, Travis, which you'll never hear this, so it's okay. But that like when Adele wasn't good enough to make him cry, he'd go and listen to my stuff, or upbeat music. That I needed to make more stuff that he could just like bump.
Yeah.
And so I definitely took that to heart. But I think part of the reason why that negative state of mind, that depression, that mental state that is a little bit less stable and much less positive is so prominent musically is because of, especially today, the age of a lot of these kids. Like, man, when I was 16, 17, 18, 19, I definitely had a lot of moments where I was confused as hell about what was going on, and I was uncomfortable with life. And at 26, almost 27, those moments have gone down a lot. It's not that they aren't there. It's not that there aren't days where I feel like shit or want to kill something or like it. But by and large, I've learned to see the good things in life, and I understand a little bit better the way life works, I think. And so it's kind of funny. Another artist that is actually kind of blown up in his own right, his name is Love Sad Kid, and he's 15 years old, and I support his music. I kind of helped teach him to rap when he was younger. He's a fantastic artist, but he is super depressed, and like he's spawned the lo-fi genre, or kind of helped define what it is, and it's all of these super depressed kids rapping and singing about being super depressed or being in love, and it's all like sort of has this nostalgic sad vibe around it, and like I can't do it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have the emotional standpoint to
Yeah.
make music like that most of the time. And I think that one of the most important things about music is that you're honest with yourself, and you're honest with your listeners, and you're honest with your music. And that's just not me.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like, I feel like it be kind of pandery, I guess, like if you're not in that state and you're trying to just like make music like that, I feel like it's a lot easier for people to kind of blow up around like that like kind of style now, like you said, with people being sad and stuff, or like like the age of the kids, which definitely
Totally.
like makes sense. Yeah, you can finish.
I mean, you think about who consumes music, and it's the number of people who consume music actively probably tapers off a little bit around 22, 23, 24, because they start holding on to the artists of their youth and just listening to them. And so new music doesn't appeal to them. And again, the most confusing time in life, like, how many crushes have you had since high school? Like, probably a lot fewer than you had in high school. You're going through this weird time of adjustment with puberty, with just like life changes, with you hate your parents, and I think everybody goes through that to a greater or lesser extent. And so that music super resonates, and always is going to, with kids. And they consume a lot of music. So like, make music that resonates with kids and you're going to do pretty well.
Yeah. So what with you, like, have you found like a really like loyal fan base then that like really just like enjoys the music that you put out, and you're trying to like build off that? Do you have like any trouble with that?
Oh gosh, I think every artist has struggled with that. Um, I definitely have some devoted fans, but it's maybe 20 or 30 people spread around the world. Actually, 'cause some of them live in the UK, but I definitely have people who love my music, and I've yet to run across somebody who listens to my music and like just really doesn't like it. That's not true. I occasionally do, but like by and large, people who listen to my music are like, "Wow, this is really good. I really like this." Um, but it is so difficult to have staying power because in some ways, in order to have staying power, you have to have a name. You have to have a reason for people to come listen to you and to hear what you have to say. Because just liking you isn't actually enough. The reason that you listen to Lil Uzi is because everyone's talking about Lil Uzi. Like, you need to know what that song is to be relevant to your friends, to your culture, to understand, to sing along, to have fun with them. And getting to a level where you're at that point with a group of people is really hard. And I think that that's kind of the biggest thing. That's the biggest roadblock that any artist hits, is just trying to be able to get to the point where the few people that will listen to their music because they like it can turn it into a sort of cultural thing within their own friend groups. Um, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, for sure. Um, on top of that, do you have yeah, I know you had a song with you had on your End of the Beginnings EP. You did a lot of like collabing with artists.
Totally.
What do you use that kind of as like a way to kind of like elevate your fan base, or like, you know, like what's your process for like collabing with people?
I mean, I there are a lot of things that go into that. I think some of those uh
Can
I
you
love working
can
with.
you hold
Go
on
ahead.
for 1 second? I'm sorry, I
Yes, I
gotta
can.
run and do something real
Absolutely.
quick.
No, you're good.
Sorry about that. My roommate was playing music. I don't know if you could hear him, but
That's all right.
yeah. But anyway, like you were saying, collabing with people and stuff.
Yeah, no, I firstly I love working with other artists, bringing them in, and it's I think it's a big way of building into fan bases more in theory than in actual practice. Unless you're working with some bigger name artists that are actually working to promote you. But it's a great way just to bring another flavor to a song. Musically, I really like it. I've also worked with a lot of people. I just there are so many artists out there that are really really good and that I love to work with, and that I like, for instance, Mike Parker, who was on Home in End of the Beginning. He had the second verse there.
Hmm.
He's a dude out of Australia who has become one of my better friends, at least online. Um, and he started rapping 2 years ago, and he was terrible.
Yeah.
And I worked a lot and spent a lot of time working with him to get him to the point where he is now, which is an incredible amount of growth. He's a really good artist, but like part of why I wanted to have him on there is because I mentored him into where he is now. Like, I want to show off what he can do to my own fan base, to myself, to like I want him there. And so
Yeah.
sometimes it's the sound, sometimes it is an effort to reach across, sometimes it's just because I want to work with somebody. Um, there are a lot of reasons that I collab, I guess, but I definitely love the effect that it has in terms of adding a lot of musical diversity.
Yeah. You have any people you're trying like to collab with on some upcoming stuff? Like any people on your hit list or
Yeah, I think I just mentioned the 15-year-old Love Sad kid. He and I are probably going to be, well, we have a song that he needs to finish his part for, which he should do soon. And so that should be coming out sometime soon. I need to work on an artist with two incredibly good singers that nobody knows about. Um, and so I'm really excited about that. One of them is named Deanna, and the other one's name is Indie G.
cool.
Um, and they have gorgeous voices, and I'm super excited, and I'm gonna get so shown up because I can't sing for crap.
So would you say kind of for you, are you like music is more of like you're doing it out of passion and like you would be you would like at some point for to make a career out of it, but at the same time it for you it's just you're driven by like passion for it. You don't get like brought down by like low numbers, low streams, low anything like that, or like where does it come from for you?
It's there's definitely a tension there because I think that I have actively tried. There have been points in the past where I've looked at my music and I've said I'm not very good at this and I need to quit. Like I am not as good as I need to be successful, and I've actually tried to quit making music and I can't do it. I love it too much. I love making music. I love mixing. I love being in a studio. I love all of what I get to do. Um, and so there is definitely a part of me that if no one ever played any of my songs, um, that'd be okay. As long as I got to keep making music. At the same time, I want people to listen to my songs. And so, and I do want to make a career out of it, whether that's just being able to make a living off of it, whether that's being a massive, massive artist, which probably won't happen, but you never know. It's one of those things that I definitely push for. And so there is definitely this part of me that just wants to do better than I'm doing, and struggles and tries and fights to figure out how. And there's this sort of balancing act between the passion that I have for music that is really ultimately what drives me doing it, but also this drive to succeed, this sort of business model that I'm trying to follow, that I'm trying to push this as a career, not just as a musical passion. And I think, again, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but my wife for Valentine's Day got me a ukulele. And I think what I love about it is that it has nothing to do with the business side of what music has become. It is not work. It isn't something that I'm trying to do to appeal to an audience, to push to an audience, to make myself successful. It is purely the passion of music. And I love that. It's nice to have that. Yeah.
I think, and I know we kind of touched on it a little earlier, but like, I think, right now anyway, where you are in your career, you're going to have to work twice as hard in terms of like distribution of your music too, because you're going to have to do the whole, mix, master, produce. On the top of that, you have to market yourself. And, I don't know what your aspirations are with like, trying to find like a label or anything like that. But, like in terms of just distribution, you have to do that. Like, I'm a firm believer in like that Gary Vee method. You get down in the DMs, you're like, hey, like play my music and stuff. Like, what are your plans, I guess, for, kind of distributing your music? How do you like, like plan on like go about that, I guess?
There are a lot of different theories about how to kind of get your music in front of the right people. It seems to me right now that in terms of, I think that I have music that is mainstream enough that a record label makes a lot of sense for me, that if I were able to get it pushed wide, that it would get a lot of engagement, that it could do very well. But record labels are in kind of a precarious situation, financially speaking, where they're losing market share constantly. And so they aren't betting on things that aren't sure things. And so you have to have an audience, and a big audience, before anybody's going to take you seriously or approach you in any way, shape, or form. And so what I am trying to do, and hopefully moving will help to some extent, but is to build up a local following, but also build up a following online, kind of create this, create a brand that has enough support behind it that it can garner some traction. But there are also, like I said, some incredible artists out there that have a surprisingly large following that don't never get there. And at the same time, once I've put in all that work, am I going to be willing to give it up to a record label? I don't know. Maybe not. I already did their job for them. So
I feel that. And then like, I think that's kind of the beauty of the internet too, though. Like you only have to make one song to pop. Only one song will pop, and then essentially, if you you play your cards right, you could be set for life. or not like life, but you know, like you could be set musically, you know, if you just play your cards right. But
Totally.
you know, like what for you what has been your most popular song on like SoundCloud or, you know, Spotify that like
So my most popular song overall, uh, I have a couple of contenders. The first one is 4 Hours,
mhm.
it was a really great song, and it's got quite a few hits on YouTube, a bunch of hits on um, SoundCloud, and then I closing in on 10,000 on Spotify. So it's done very well. I also did a cover of a Rag and Bone Man song, which did really well, called Human, and a lot of that one's success came from it being a cover, which was intentional. Um, and there have been a couple others that have come out with that have done really well overall, but
Yeah.
those have been standouts.
Yeah. Did you do anything like special with those, like to market them, or not really? Or
Not really. I have honestly no idea how 4 Hours got up to 10,000 plays on Spotify.
well, it's a good song, that's why. But
Right, but like I mean, I didn't. There was nothing I did different with that fundamentally. It was for part of a competition that Team Backpack was holding that they switched the rules up, and I lost because of it because they decided to change the rules halfway through, but that's okay. And it was I have been told so many times that was my best song by far, and I'm not even sure exactly why or what I did with it that was so unique and so interesting, but like artists that I've respected, fans that love me, like it was, you know, it's interesting when you start seeing your best friends become fans. One of my closest friends last year, his most played song on Spotify was 4 Hours. And that seems inconsequential because he's your friend. Your friends ignore you. Like,
yeah.
your friends are never your fans until you make something really worth listening to. And like, he loved that song. So I guess I just did something right with that one.
Yeah, that's really cool though. So like, what's next for you? What you got in the bag? You know, what's coming up?
This year I think I worked it out. I put out like fewer than 10 songs in 2017. It was pathetic. I was working on a lot of different stuff. I actually got a lot done. I did a lot of features and a lot of other things, but like I didn't put out a lot of music of my own. And so this year I wanted to put out a song every other week. I was supposed to release a song this morning. It has been postponed because of some delays with a feature that I have on it. But it's going to be coming out hopefully next weekend, and then I'll be back on schedule. But I'm just trying to crank out songs.
Yeah.
An artist actually out of Seattle by the name of Travis Thompson, who you should look up. You'd love him. He's fantastic. But he kind of blew up last year off of this idea of just occasionally dropping fairly regularly once a month, once every month and a half or so, music videos with it, like having really consistent quality. And that kind of is how you generate momentum. And way back in 2016, when I first moved back to Montana, I actually put out a song a week for about 6 months.
Yeah.
And the amount of momentum that I picked up was ridiculous because I wasn't as good as I am now by a long shot. And like people still like started to look for it, expect it. Like you get them on a regular schedule, they start to care, they start to be interested in it.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to kind of get back into that mode where I'm consistently putting out new music and people know when to expect it. And yeah.
It's kind of like that Russ Effect, you know. I think I really believe, like, you know, what he says, it's like it's a 10-year process. You know, you have to be willing to, you know, literally go like have shows with 10 people before you can get the shows with like, you know, 10,000, 10 million people at them.
Totally. No, I really like Russ because of what he says, and I mean he says it in one of his songs or put it in one of his music videos. I think he did that song a week thing on SoundCloud for like 3 years.
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. But people pay attention. Like, it's stupid, but like just that ability to know that like every Saturday I'm going to show up on a SoundCloud and there's going to be a new song. Bam. People start to pay attention. It's weird. But
yeah. And you know, do you think like for you that you're just kind of doing the Russ mentality. I mean, do you mix and like, you know, produce your own stuff, or do you have people for you that do it, or like you like doing both, or?
I'm a terrible producer, but I have produced some of my own stuff. Rollin' Away was produced by myself. More recently, Henny Express I produced. That was pretty good. I can mix my own stuff. Again, I'm not the best engineer in the world, and I don't always like what I do with my own vocals. That sounds weird, but like sometimes you get this sort of mental block about your own stuff. And so I usually have somebody else that's producing the songs, and frequently somebody else is mixing. So I am not Russ. Can't claim to be Russ.
No, but, just, you know, I think his kind of thing was, you know, like you do it yourself, you get, you know, like then you don't need anybody, but that's also just, you know, how he is, you know, like he thinks he's the best in the world. I would, you know, I firmly would like stick probably to like vocals, you know, or the one thing I'm good at too, definitely.
Right. And also, just as a side note, because this cracked me up when I thought about it, you know, Russ, I love Russ. I'll start there. Russ brags about like he produces all his own stuff, he engineers all his own stuff, and he doesn't ever do features. J. Cole's been doing that for forever. Like, you should go check J. Cole's credits, because like he produces everything he does. Not everything, but like 90% of it. So anyway, just cracks me up that Russ thinks he's original. Yeah. I'm not sure that he's nearly as original as he thinks he is.
J. Cole's not as loud on social media though, really. Like he really likes to stick to himself. I found his Instagram the other day, and that dude hasn't posted for like 2 years. Like he is not nearly as loud on Insta as, you know, like anything is Russ. But no, totally. I do think that's kind of funny too. Yeah. But so, you know, you just got law school, and you're just gonna keep pounding out music and hoping for, you know, the best. And is that kind of your plan then?
Yeah, currently. I mean, again, in 2016 putting out a track a week, I gained a lot of momentum. I want to see. Right now, it kind of feels like building that momentum is hard, but I've put out 3 songs this year, so we're gonna give it a little bit more time.
Yeah.
And so in 6 months or a year, if it's still not working, it's still not going the direction that I want it to, I'll reevaluate and come up with something different. But I think in my past experience and in watching other people succeed, this is one of the best ways to build and grow organically.
Yeah. And then you with your like social media presence and stuff, are you gonna try to like ramp that up then with this whole, you know, once a week thing, or like
I mean, I'm trying to. It is so hard to stand out on social media, and I am not. I have thought many a time that I'm far too sane to actually be famous in terms of social media. I'm just not inflammatory enough. I don't say random shit that pisses everybody off nearly enough to be.
You're not like famous. You're not like 6ix9ine, where like he can make a song and just his haters will bump it, and you know, like everyone will just play it because he's saying ridiculous stuff.
So, I mean, but my engagement actually across the board is going up generally. And so trying to find a good balance there, but definitely building on social media has become absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
In the last 4 or 5 years for being successful as an artist.
For sure. What are you gonna try to do to kind of like separate yourself from, you know, everybody else?
I had a whole identity crisis like 2 or 3 months ago about this, but I realized that what makes me unique is how down to earth I am. That I don't do drugs. I don't party. I stay at home with my wife and watch House of Cards on Saturday night because I am lame and boring. But like that lameness and boringness is relatable. And I learned, and I've kind of been pushing that aspect of it. And it's working. Like I said, that actually is relatable. There are a lot of people that don't want to go out on Friday night.
Yeah.
Who knew? I am their artist.
Yeah, it's not about just, you know, money and clout and, you know, like fame and stuff like that. That's dope. That's dope. All right, give me a couple things to you know, give me some advice for, you know, give some advice for people that, you know, are trying to maybe, you know, like in a position where they want to, you know, make music or like in general? Just give me like some Hyde advice.
I have three things. Number one, don't give up. It sounds stupid, but the only way that you lose is if you give up. I remember I was talking to, when I was making my last album, Fire from the Heart, which came out in 2016. Yeah, forever ago. And he told me the story about the Beatles, right? Arguably the greatest band ever, like influential beyond belief. They started doing cocaine because they were doing 12-hour shows in bars for pennies. And they needed to stay awake. They could have quit. And they didn't. Because they were fantastic musicians and they kept pushing and they made it. But like everyone started somewhere. That's this piece of advice number 2. No one is special. You aren't just worse at life than they are. No one was born the way that they appear to be initially. So like when, for instance, I remember my personal musical idol is Kanye West. I absolutely love him. And he is fantastic musically. Like he's a genius. I love what he does musically. And he has this wonderful line, and I can't remember the song, which is terrible, but he made 5 beats a day for 3 summers. That's how he got that good at producing. That's how he got to be a musical genius, is he worked his ass off. No one gets around that. So don't give up. Work hard and remember the fact that it's that hard work that gets you there. It's not some magic talent, some gift from God. I even hate the word talented because it's not true. I sucked at singing. I sucked at rapping. I sucked at everything that I've started doing. And almost everybody does. And you just push through it and work through it and you will get better. That's my advice.
Hell yeah. That's good advice. I think that, yeah, I agree with everything you said, so, but I think,
like, for you as a videographer, Quentin Tarantino sucked when he picked up a video camera the first time. Like, it was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know how to frame a shot. He learned all of those things, and so have you.
Yeah, it's all about starting somewhere.
Exactly.
Hell yeah. Well, you answered all my questions. I think that it's a good wrap for a first podcast. I really appreciate you, taking 45 minutes to talk with me.
Thank you so much for having me, for real.
No, yeah, like, if you need anything, let me know. I know, like, I'm sure I'll keep talking to you, and, like, we've been talking for the past couple months now, but
totally.
Yeah, dog, like, it's been fun. I look forward to hearing your new stuff. I'm excited to see, like, what happens, and I wish you best of luck with, like, law school and stuff, too, so.
I appreciate it.